Hi, folks. Welcome to the Moving Home Podcast. I'm Jay Norman, and this is my wife.
Hi, I'm Jessie Norman. Just like many of you, Jay and I have both walked through some difficult seasons in our lives.
And we know just how easy it is to get stuck.
We now have 5 beautiful
and crazy
children, and because of everything we've been through, our home operates on grace.
A concept we didn't fully understand until way later on in life.
Until we actually needed it ourselves. We want to share through stories of love and laughter,
How we were moving on and how big of a game changer grace can be.
in relationship with one another, and how we treat ourselves, and in our case, blending a family.
Something that may just require the largest amount of grace to date.
Preach.
You never know what road life's going to take you on. We have a podcast.
Yes, we do, and we really hope y'all enjoy it.
Hey, babe, how are you today?
I'm doing great.
It's good to be home.
It is so good to be home. Home sweet home.
Home sweet home. We made a little side trip we'd had planned for a while to Colorado to see Jess's parents, and had a great time in the mountains, hiking and doing a lot of stuff. But we did a lot of things while we were there.
Yeah, we did. We have a rule of thumb that we don't really stay anywhere longer than 4 days. And for some reason, we did stay longer with them. And so it made coming home that much sweeter. And also knowing that they were right behind us. So they live half the year in Colorado and half the year in southern Louisiana. So when they make the change from one place to the next, we get to see them here in Texas.
We're about halfway or a little over, I guess.
It's kind of perfect.
Yeah.
But so in telling them goodbye in Colorado, it was not so bad because we knew we were getting on a plane to go to Texas and they were getting in a car to go to Texas. So we were so excited they're about to be here.
We had a really good time, got to hike in the mountains, and Jess has been going there a long time, but we did get to see some stuff that she had never seen, and we did find out that altitude-wise, we're not in as good a shape as maybe we thought we were.
I've gone since I was like, 8. But every time Jay and I go see my parents, I always want to hike. And of course, something else gets in the way, or maybe it snows or something. But I always have this grandeur idea that we're these hikers. We're not, because every time we find ourselves on a hike, we don't have our backpacks. We don't have we're always wearing CrossFit shoes, which are like the slickest.
Walking in snow and mud.
Yes, CrossFit shoes are very flat bottoms, almost like lifting shoes. And so here we are, hiking in Hawaii or hiking in Colorado in slick shoes that are like for death, you know. But anyways, yeah.
So we start up the mountain on our little excursion.
It was
about 3 minutes in, I'm about to pass out, and she looks like she's up there just fresh as a daisy. I'm thinking from behind you look that way.
Thank you.
I was thinking, I sure hope she's fixing to stop.
I was faking it because I felt like someone had wrapped a Target grocery sack around my face and then said, go hike. And the trail was called Baby Bathtub. And I was like, we cannot succumb to baby bathtub.
I felt like I was carrying a 60-pound backpack,
But wasn't
carrying anything.
No, we weren't. Wasn't it the most beautiful trail we've ever been on?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was so majestic. If we just could have only been able to breathe, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was in front of him.
Blame on altitude.
I was in front of him, and it's absolutely altitude.
Yeah.
We are not that out of shape. And I mean, first 30, 45 seconds, where you have to warm up to get into your workout. Just pressing through the warm up on this hike, we could not breathe, and it was straight up, up, up. So it was like doing these high step ups for 45 seconds in 10,000 foot elevation. And so I just kept going, make him say it, like act like you're fine and make him say stop. And finally you did. And I was so glad.
The mountain was getting fuzzy, I had to.
Yeah, and we were really only like 40 seconds in,
Not long.
And he goes, are you dying? And I was like, babe, you're in so much better shape than me. What do you think? I am literally, I cannot breathe.
Not so. But we had a great time, and for her family being there, a lot of it is about helping do things there, and we ended up doing a lot of stuff. We had a lot of fun, did go hiking and saw Box Canyon Falls. That was beautiful, and And saw all that, saw some deer, but we did work a good bit. And,
we worked the whole time. That's our happy place, Jay and I's happy place. I've mentioned it before, but as a child, we were to work on Saturdays. So I was one of 4 children, and every Saturday we knew, even if we had a friend spend the night, we knew that we were going to wake up and we were going to work on the property all day long. And I'm sure I hated it, but it is the fondest thing about my childhood, I could tell you. And even as an adult, if we're ever with my mom and dad and brothers and sisters, they'll say, what do you want to do while you're here? If we go in town. And I just want to recreate it. I just want a big old work day. To me, it's when we're all happiest. We're helping each other and we're serving, and everyone is just in a great mood about it, and we're making something nice out of something that maybe the leaves have all fallen, or a tree has fallen, or maybe we're stoning something or making a pathway. And so while we were in Colorado, that's what we got to do the whole time we were there.
So not only with her parents, but also with some friends that live there on the place that they're at.
2 of my best friends live there, Bob and Em, and their parents and my parents live kind of on the same, maybe 40 acres.
Probably so.
And so Bob and Em have moved on to the compound. I wish we lived there too. But anyways, Em and I have been best friends since birth. And so we got to go over and just spend a whole bunch of time with them. I was there more for emotional support. There wasn't another shovel. There was only 3 shovels.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
You went good. You did a great job on that.
Thank you.
She disappeared pretty regular. I'm not sure where she went. But
I just kept everyone in great moods.
Did an awesome job.
Thank you. You did so good.
But we did. We helped them build the walkway, and it was a lot of fun. And helped her dad get things cleaned up before they leave to go back to southern Louisiana. And, so we had a really good time.
Right. I have a favorite podcast called Armchair Expert. It's with Dax Shepard. And so I just got on the push mower, which my dad has a push mower that has the... What is it?
Automatic drive, or
yes.
what you call it, self-drive.
It doesn't go too fast, but it's not too slow. So anyways, a new podcast episode came out. I was so thrilled to listen to it. And I just put it on and went back and forth for like an hour and a half. My dad kept feeling so guilty that I was mowing the yard, and he kept trying to take the mower from me. And I finally had to be like, Dad, I need closure. Like, I've started this and I need to stop it.
And I did provide emotional support on that
day. Did you?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And water.
And really, Jay was working so much. And usually I feel a little like wanting him to get off of his phone or, participate in what we're doing. But it's such a time of the year on the farm where Jay has to be on his phone. So you were a good part of our trip on the phone.
Yeah, well, we went, and it was wet.
Yeah.
Thinking it was going to be wet, and which we'd already had this trip planned for a while, so we were going, but it ended up getting dry, and so the crew was really busy at home, and it was a little bit stressful for me not being there and being part of it, but they did a really awesome job, and we had a good time. So.
Yeah, they did, and I really am so thankful for our team and our crew. They just do such an amazing job when you're not there. They don't, I feel like every other company, they kind of play while the boss is away. Not ours. They jump into action and they take care of business. And I'm going to tell God about them right when we get to heaven, just how thankful I am for them.
Right.
And because it does allow us to get gone for a few days. And that's important for us.
Sure. Yeah, it worked out. It was not easy, and it was a first for me to be gone during that critical time, but it worked out.
Right.
And they ultimately did the biggest workload, of this part of the season right then. So.
Well, because we try to guess with the weather what would be the best time to leave, and then the weather will throw us. It
looked like it was going to be perfect time to be gone. It ended up being the total opposite, but that's life and the way it goes, and it brings us to what we've been talking about is investing in people and investing in each other. And I think, what I've invested in them and what they've invested in me is, as an employer and them as employees for me, it all paid off, and those relationships when we're gone like that, and it does every day.
I think that's a huge thing that you just said, because if you were someone that just drove them crazy or that they didn't respect or love, I hate to say adore, because that's kind of a sissy when you're talking about a farm crew.
Right.
But the respect that they have for you, I think it helps a lot in situations like this. So it really does pay off to be a good man like you are.
Yeah, thank you, baby. And I mean, they're all good men too, and
they are.
And it makes it, the combination makes it work. They're willing to put out and be there and be dependable, and that's what it takes. I think it's just over time. It's worked out that way, and we're really fortunate, really are.
Right, we really are. But we woke up on Sunday. We were going to go to my mom and dad's church, and my dad had woken up in the night around 3 a.m. and gotten a migraine. He said even the pillow hurt his head. And when the pillow hurts your head, you don't get any sleep. So anyways, we missed church. Every morning, we would wake up, get coffee, and go sit in this living room they've added on to the place with a fire and with praise and worship music in the background. I think one morning we had country music on. But anyway, so I had brought my laptop, and since we missed church, I asked him if we could just live stream our church back from Frisco. And so that's what we did. The four of us sat around and had church in the living room. It was just really, really nice. A memory I'll have forever.
Well, and the pastor had a sermon that kind of hit the nail on the head and the stuff we had been talking about and thinking about. And, of course, he went a lot deeper than we ever would, but it was a really good sermon.
We had mentioned that we had recorded our episode on anxiety a couple weeks ago. And I guess before our episode came out, he had mentioned that the next week the sermon was going to be on anxiety. So when our episode came out and his sermon came out, they were going to both be on anxiety, and we just thought that was really neat.
Yeah, he said that in church, and we immediately looked at each other, because we had just recorded not long before that.
We couldn't believe it, how it had all unfolded. And those little nods, they kind of let you know that maybe you're on the right path.
Yeah.
But what I mentioned in last episode, episode 9, I had mentioned that I never really had heard someone describe their panic attack or their anxiety attack, and how if I really could hear that, just how comforting that would be to me as somebody that had them. And I knew God was nudging me, and I wrestled with him because I so did not want to. You could hear the fear in my voice last episode as I tried to describe it. I was mad the whole time that I was having. I felt like we were having to have that conversation. And then we listened to our sermon, and one of our other pastors, Josh Wright, described his bout with depression and panic attacks and exactly what he goes through, his mind goes through, his body goes through. And it was just so crazy, because if I would have heard him, maybe I wouldn't have had to wrestle with the Lord, because he could have gone first. And then I would have been like, okay, well, I can do this because he did it, so I'll do it. But I think God was really just seeing if I could trust him, he was
just letting you know, hey, you were right.
Right, to go first. And that's what we try to teach the kids, especially Lily as a teenager dealing with teenage girl drama. Right. And I just try to teach her, go first. Be the first one to do the right thing. You go first. Yeah. You go first. She always teases, you want me to skip in line and be the first one in line? I'm like, you know what I'm talking about. She's so
not
funny.
That.
Yeah.
Well, and I think going back to Josh and him getting up and saying that, I mean, for me, not only just being able to speak about what he was doing, but ultimately he and his wife were starting their own church, and with the help of our church. And because of personal reasons, he backed out of that situation. And for me, the biggest thing is that, I mean, it took a lot to get up in front of everybody. It took a lot to go to our pastor and say, look, I just can't do it, and I'm going to have to back up. And, I mean, for me, that's grandes huevos. I mean, that's...
Babe.
Sorry. To get up and do that in front of everybody and then to back out from that.
Bubba's.
What?
Oh, gosh. Well, I agree. You made me lose my train of thought.
Sorry.
Because I feel like Satan is in your head going, you're so weak.
Yeah.
You're so weak. And to us, we see how brave that is.
Yeah.
That was for him to do that. That was what you came away from that sermon telling me, babe, how brave was that? How brave was that? And
well, I mean, not just to get up and say it in front of everybody, but just to ultimately go to the pastor and say, I can't do it.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot.
Right. Some episodes will have a lot of feedback, a lot of friends and strangers coming to us and saying, oh my gosh, we agree with everything you said, and that was so relatable. And sometimes it's like crickets. And I know that's not because the episode sucked. That's just how it is. And so it was really important to me as a podcaster to reach out to him and be like, you will change our church, you're going to change our community, and you're going to change the world with your story. Because, oh my gosh, how impactful it was, And to be able to hear that with my mom and dad was just amazing, Right. I felt like we really did hold church in Colorado while we were on vacation. It was just fantastic. So that kind of spurred what we wanted to talk about this week, going back to everything he's been showing us while on our vacation. And it was the kind of secondary theme of our pastor's sermon on anxiety was investing in others.
Right. And that's something, we touched on with work or with a job or a business or whatever, but it trickles down to each other and family and kids and every part of life.
Right. I know I heard something a long time that stuck with me is when you're dealing with anxiety and when you're walking through depression, some things that you can do to get out of it is just to go and find something that you can do for someone else and how that really can pull you out. And it's because we are hardwired to serve others and to invest in others. I see that in our kids.
Yep.
If we're not, we've said it before, if you and I are not investing in each other, our relationship suffocates. And it doesn't suffocate over a week or over a month. It suffocates immediately.
Yeah.
And so how it has to be a constant investment in each other, an investment in our children, and an investment in our relationships that we've been blessed with.
Well, and for me, I look back over, my life over the last several years. When you and I married, you're that way by nature, and I am too, but I was focused on other things and not doing that for other people. And that's one thing, that you've taught me and that we've done together is be able to go out and it's also stuff we learned from our CrossFit community. Everybody's there to help, and it's not necessarily that, I'd never helped anybody, but it just wasn't always the forefront of my situation. I was worried about what I had on my own to take care of and didn't always take care of or invest in other people in the way I needed to.
Right. It's just something that is so good for your health overall is pouring into others. I've mentioned it on another episode, but if you want to see the worst versions of our children come to our house on Christmas morning, I'm sure every other home is like this, but it's just when they act like the biggest ingrates, their attitudes are, the more presents you give them, the worse their little attitude gets, and they just get away from themselves.
And we wonder why you get stressed about Christmas.
Yes. On the flip side of that coin, whenever they're doing something nice for someone, Lily had wanted this little Nike headband that you tie, and she had grabbed one for her friend. And it was like that next 24 hours leading up to giving, because it was over the weekend.
Right.
So just getting ready to gift that to her friend and just waiting for her response and her reaction. She was just so excited. And I see that as such a picture for our lives is when we're getting and getting and getting, just how selfish that pulls that selfish nature out of us. And, just like going back to when we're on vacation and helping Bob and Em and helping my dad. And that's when we kind of thrive.
It takes some doing to learn to look for it, to do it. For me, I'm not going to say it didn't come natural, but I didn't understand it like I did a lot of other things.
Right.
I mean, didn't understand that it needed to be taken care of.
Right. We kind of get really busy. And so with our friendships, I've always heard adult friendships are hard. And so you kind of try to look, what exactly is hard about it, And I think that's what CrossFit really bridges that gap for us, because everyone is trying to find a way to fit their fitness regimen in. And in CrossFit, they're going to physically go to a place because they need to get their workout in. And in addition, we all get to hang out for the next hour and a half and just pour into each other and build each other up and catch up with each other on our week. And so it's almost like a combo where it's hard for us to get time without our children to meet our friends,
right,
or find a time where we're not busy and our friends are not busy so that we can go and have dinner and invest in each other. And so that's where CrossFit has bridged the gap for us. Just making time for each other is so important.
Well, I think that being able to go out and recognize that in different groups, in different communities, the way different people, serve each other and invest with each other. I mean, it really, shows you what you can do in your own life. And I know that's one thing that, like I said earlier, I've learned from you, but just in our personal relationship is the amount of time that you spend just really taking the time to invest in me to help me understand something that I haven't done before, some way of changing. And on the same side of that, being open to, my opinion on it and taking it the other direction.
Well, I think the second we stop talking about that stuff is when we should get worried.
Yeah.
We always tell our children when their coaches are getting after them, don't be worried when your coaches are yelling. Let's be worried when your coaches stop talking to you.
Right.
And so I think with me and you, I don't want that part to die where we do care. We care enough to talk about the hard stuff and have the hard conversations with each other. When things are quiet and there's not rumblings with the two of us, because I know the norm with us is some rumblings, that's when I would be a little worried, I do think that is so neat that an antidote for depression and anxiety is going to that person that God's placed on your heart and bringing them sushi, or making a phone call to a friend instead of a text or a Facebook Messenger message.
Right.
I just think that is so neat that that's how God has wired us, that medicine for heartache is to pour into others.
Yeah.
And that's what our pastor describes, is that's why we're here on earth, is to invest into these different areas of our lives and to be good stewards to take care of those things.
Yeah, and so our pastor had really gone over a list of what to invest in, and he said invest in relationships and in your job and in money and physical, emotional, and mental, and then that all wraps up into
spiritual.
Yeah, I mean, you knew that one before he even said it.
Yeah, he goes, what's missing? Because he kind of put it in a pie chart.
Yeah.
And he said, what's missing? And it was obviously spiritual. And it was really neat how he described why he left off the spiritual, because he said all of it is spiritual. I wouldn't want to make a pie piece spiritual, because in your mind you would think, okay, well, then I don't need to keep spiritual as a part of investing my money, or keep spiritual a part of working on my physical self. It all needs to be drenched in spiritual. The entire chart is spiritual.
Right.
And that's something terribly important to remember, that, we compartmentalize our life as church is on Sunday and maybe on Wednesday, and in a different part is our job, and in a different part is our workout. And in reality, it all needs to flow together.
Yeah. Well, and I say it all the time on here. It's just, it boils down to work and getting it all done and being focused on it. And and some version of this I've heard most of my life. I can't remember the actual wordage, but we We had come across a quote from Anne Frank that said, "No one has ever become poor by giving."
I love that.
And it does fit in with what we're talking about. And for me, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I was busy with my own stuff and wouldn't always take the time. If a neighbor needed help doing something, I would be right there. But actually, going away from that to actually stop what I was doing to go ahead and help somebody, at a point in my life, I probably wouldn't have done that.
Really?
And I see the importance of it now.
It is huge, right? I know when you read me that quote, I love it so much. I would love to have it framed around the house for us and for the kids to read on a daily basis. But when my dad was teaching us about tithe, our church believes that you're to give 10% of your income as tithe. And so he used to always tell us 100% minus your 10% tithe equals well over 100%. He used to always tell us that. And I fully believe it. I fully believe that the fruits of investing your money in these ministries and how much we get out of our church multiplied by the thousands and thousands that just our one church is reaching, multiplied by all of the ministries across the nation, just how much we get back from that.
Yeah.
We've been able to see so much, and our family thrives at the things that are done at our church.
Right.
And I know there's hundreds and thousands of churches just like ours, but ours reaches our family right where we are, you know. And what's really neat is our church has 3 different campuses. So there's one in a part of Texas called McKinney. There's one about 10 or 15 miles down the road in a city called Frisco, and then one on the east side of Frisco. So we have 3 different campuses. Our pastor preaches from the main campus, and it satellites out to the other 2.
Right.
I thought that would bother me when we started going. I didn't really even
me
want...
too.
It did.
Yeah.
I didn't even really want to give it a try. But once I heard our pastor, I didn't care if he was preaching from Alaska or Mars. I just knew I wanted to be where he was.
Right.
I wanted to be led by him. And our distinct story is I started going to our church when I was married to my ex-husband. And so whenever we walked through our separation and divorce, and then Jay and I marrying, our children never missed a Sunday, Dusty and I's children, because we didn't have to go find another church. They just, if they were with my ex-husband, they went to church. If they were with me, they went to church. They never missed a Sunday at our church. And they spend a lot of time at Dusty's home church, and that's really nice for them. But I told our pastor once, I know you didn't design our 3 campuses for divorce, but I just want to tell you thank you that my children didn't have to go to a different place, because I tease, my ex-husband didn't need anything else from me except to say, please go find a different church, because I was always right there, because I would mean to go to the Frisco church to get away from him, or get out of his hair, I mean. Yeah. And it would just be easier to get to McKinney.
Closer,
yeah, it's closer. And so I'm like, it's okay, right? It's okay. And he's like, can you please go find another church? Just joking with me. But it's all just really, really worked out for our kids. And ultimately, the kids are what comes first, not our feelings, but theirs.
Right.
So, and then ours are a close second.
Sure.
So we love our church, and we've just really been spurred this week to invest in others, whether it's our spouse or our children or friends or family. And I think that's a really healthy place to live.
So you were talking about investing in the kids and all that, and the podcast you listened to, that's Dax Shepard, and what he was saying about really in his life, there was nothing that really taught him all that. And I can see that somewhat. And some of it you gain by age, and he gained his by, problems he had in life. But kind of tell him to just of that?
Well, he was talking about, our school system, the things that we desperately need to know about this life, being in relationship with one another, how conflict resolution, how to apologize to a friend, how to be in a marriage. These things are so important. And to my knowledge and to his knowledge, that we don't really have classes for those things. Some schools may, but I didn't have any. Did you?
I don't think as a whole, no.
And so that's what he was saying is, for him to learn those things, he had to grow up, have an addiction to drugs and alcohol, get into AA, and then through AA learn these terribly important skills. As parents, when your school system, you're kind of relying on them to teach your children, and you sometimes can go on autopilot, but you just have to remember so much is left up to you to teach these kids, and they're yours, they're your kids. So we really did realize in him telling that story that if you're not going to have a class like that with emotional development, that is up to the parents, and it's up to us, and it's our responsibility to invest in them and to teach them step by step how to be in relationships and that conflict resolution, and how to apologize, how to speak to a friend about something tough. These are things that we have to be pouring into our children, especially in this day and age where they're on their phones every second.
Right. Well, and they're on their phones and under a lot of pressure from a lot of different things, and getting a lot of information there that's not right, and a lot of shows they watch that's not really giving them great examples. And I know for me, the importance of it stems from just going through, which we mentioned that a lot, everything we went through.
Yeah.
Seeing where I made mistakes, and seeing how, a change in behavior or a reaction to something, where I could have done a lot better job in that, over my entire life. And, and I was raised by parents that were really on top of me to do the right thing and do this, but there were still, there was habits developed that, I see now that where they were wrong, and that's why it's so important to me to invest in these kids and show them, and not rely on anybody else to point that out. And I know for them sometimes it probably feels like we've really got our thumb on them too much, but I don't want them to wait till they're in their 40s to figure that out.
You're exactly right, and that's what I was telling Jay when I heard Dax say that story. Is when we kind of give each other we're really just doing the best that we can. If we weren't taught in school terribly important principles on how to be in relationship with one another, where we were taught everything else, it kind of comes down to we're all just winging it, and we're doing the exact best thing that we can. We're learning from every reaction that we have. And if you get in a toxic relationship, you'll learn some really bad habits. It doesn't even have to be toxic. It just has to be unhealthy. And you're teaching each other how to treat you, and you're applying principles with one friend to another friend, and everyone is just absolutely doing the best that we can. And I think it just goes back to dropping the rope. It goes back to not holding each other hostage with the past or things that have been done or things that have been said. It's dropping the rope and letting it go and having grace for, what? We're all just doing the best that we can. We're not out to get each other. Maybe if something was said that was horrible, it was said in the moment of anger. And we just need to have grace for each other and to start pouring back into those relationships.
Yeah, that's a huge deal, is to be able to do that, and to see that what you're investing, taking the time to do those things, that there's a payoff, and being able to move yourself forward, move your family forward, move your employees forward, your kids forward, whatever, into making those right decisions, and taking that one step further, and becoming those same people that are investing in somebody else. And as you always say about passing it down, to the next generation. Mm-hmm. And that leads me to another part that he brought up is stewardship. And so, we're sitting here talking about investing in people and taking all this time. And once you and I, we're invested in each other. And when I think of stewardship, that's a word used in agriculture today a lot. I mean, it started out with the big corporations talking about it, but now it's down to to the everyday farmer. And when I think of stewardship, I think of taking care of the land. I think of when I'm saying taking care of the land for erosion and for too much chemicals or whatever, we have to take care of that because I want to pass it down to our children and our children's children, just like we do these lessons that we're trying to teach them. And whether that's through pesticide, not getting the insect resistant to it or whatever. I mean, stewardship is a big word for me, and so I feel like when he said that's what came into my mind. But now, as we've talked about it more and talking about investing, I see stewardship from the side of me having to really nurture what you and I have and what you and I are trying to achieve with each other, being a steward of that and keeping it up every day.
I remember a dear friend of mine came to work for us. When I mentioned the job to him, it was almost like he got so emotional. He had been looking everywhere. I was kind of missing the boat because I knew you were looking for someone and I knew he was looking for a job, but I couldn't connect the dots in my head. And so finally when I did, it was like euphoria, I was like, oh my gosh, they're both going to be so happy when they find each other. But when I talked to him about the job, he got emotional and he said, I'm a keeper like my dad. And I need something to take care of. I need to be able to take care of the cattle. I need to be able to take care of the land. And I thought that was so neat that he knew that about himself as a strength. And he has gone on to manage our farm and he's changed our whole life.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's so neat. But going back to your quote by Anne Frank, no one has ever become poor by giving. I know we think of that as money and finances, but to me, it also goes towards time. So we say that we don't have enough time. We're too busy if there were more hours in the day. But to me, if you are investing your time in others, God is going to give you the fruit of that as more time. And you're not going to run out of hours in the day when those hours are invested in someone else. I have been coaching this amazing basketball team made up of different high schoolers from around our area. And I just remember the first weekend, it was just such a blitz. We had games all day Saturday. We had practice for like 3 or 4 hours on Sunday. And I missed my family. I wasn't used to being away from you guys. But when it was all said and done, I almost just kind of broke down into tears because I realized that for 2 full days, instead of being in my head and wrestling with the thousands of thoughts that go into my head that are usually unhealthy, that for 2 full days, I really had been, nothing was going on up there. I was so invested in those girls and coaching those girls and thinking about what could work here and what would be the healthiest thing to tell them at this moment, that I never was allowed time to stay in my head. By serving them and helping them to get better at basketball, it gave me one of the best weekends I've ever had of my life because I was not in my head the whole weekend. I was giving that time to someone else.
Well, and as we sit here and talk about this stuff, it brings me the realization, just like we're talking about the farm and having him to run it as, investing in that, keeping that up and giving to other people, it has brought me more time and allowed me to spend more time with you, spend more time with the kids because of that. And I never really thought of it that way till we're just, sitting here discussing it. But I mean, it really has come full circle.
That's really neat. Really neat. You never really maybe took a chance on someone like that.
No.
And it probably could be a pride thing because you were 100% all in, on your back.
Yeah.
And so I know that's been really hard for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. But the kids and I say thank you. We really do.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be joking about that. We really, really, really appreciate the presence you have in our house.
Well, I appreciate all the lessons to get there.
Do you have anything else?
I don't.
You don't? We get to everything.
I think maybe we did.
Okay.
What else you got?
I don't think anything.
Well, the song says the road goes on forever and the party never ends.
I love you.
I love you too. We sure appreciate y'all listening today. If you'd like to follow us on social media, you can search for us, Moving On Podcast. That's 3 words, on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We would love to hear from you. With ways you're figuring out how to drop the ropes in each of your own lives, and even ways that you're not, hell, that's just as entertaining to us. See you in a couple of weeks.